Imagine living in a city where a killer isn't just murdering people. He's writing letters to the police about it. Not just letters, coded messages, creepy symbols, and threats printed in the newspaper for the whole country to see. That's exactly what happened in Northern California in the late 1960s, when a mysterious murderer began calling himself the Zodiac. And the most terrifying part, no one ever caught him. The first attack, December 1968, on a cold night near Lake Herman Road. 2 teenagers parked their car in a quiet lover's lane. 17-year-old David Faraday and 16-year-old Betty Lou Jensen were just hanging out like any normal couple. Suddenly, headlights appeared behind them. Someone stepped out of a car and walked toward them. No warning, no argument, just gunshots in the dark. David was shot point blank. Betty tried to run, but the killer chased her down and shot her multiple times. Police were shocked, but they assumed it was just another tragic murder. They had no idea it was only the beginning. The killer strikes again 7 months later. On July 4th, 1969, another young couple parked near Blue Rock Springs Park. Darlene Ferrin and Michael McGough were sitting in their car when another vehicle pulled up beside them. At first it looked like a cop, but then the driver stepped out, holding a gun. He walked straight up to their window and opened fire. Michael survived the attack. Darlene didn't, but the scariest part came after the shooting. About an hour later, the Vallejo Police Department got a phone call. A calm male voice said, "I want to report a double murder. If you go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you will find the kids in a brown car. They were shot with a 9mm Luger. I also killed those kids last year." The man hung up. Police realized something horrifying. The killer from the first attack was calling them personally. The letters begin weeks later. 3 newspapers in California received identical letters from someone claiming to be the killer. The letters were sent to San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco Examiner, Vallejo Times, Herald Inside. The envelopes were coded messages, strange symbols arranged into puzzles. The writer demanded the newspapers print them on the front page, or he would kill again. At the bottom of the letters was a strange symbol, a circle with a crosshair. That was the first time the world saw the name Zodiac, the Lake Berryessa horror. On September 27, 1969, college students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were relaxing near Lake Berryessa. Suddenly, a tall man appeared wearing something terrifying, a black executioner-style hood with the Zodiac crosshair symbol on the chest. He told them he was an escaped prisoner and needed their car, but then he tied them up. Moments later, he pulled out a knife. Brian and Cecilia were stabbed repeatedly. Before leaving, the killer calmly walked to their car door and wrote a message on it listing the dates of his previous murders. It was like he was keeping score. Cecilia died 2 days later. Brian barely survived. The San Francisco murder, just 2 weeks later, the Zodiac struck again, this time in the middle of the city. Taxi driver Paul Stein picked up a passenger in downtown San Francisco. The passenger asked to be driven to a quiet neighborhood. When they arrived, the passenger pulled out a gun, 1 shot to the head. Paul Stein was dead instantly. The killer calmly wiped the cab, tore a piece of the victim's shirt, and walked away into the night. Witnesses saw him leave the scene, but police accidentally let him slip away. It was one of the biggest missed chances in criminal history. The terrifying letters continue after the taxi murder. Zodiac kept sending letters to newspapers and police. In one letter he wrote, "I like killing people because it is so much fun." He also claimed his victims would become slaves in the afterlife. One of his ciphers became famous as the Zodiac 340 cipher. which took over 50 years for codebreakers to finally solve in 2020. But even after solving it, the killer's identity was still a mystery. The endless suspects over the years, investigators looked at dozens of suspects. One of the most famous was Arthur Lee Allen. He matched some descriptions and owned items similar to the killer's gear. But the evidence was never strong enough to charge him. And when DNA testing came decades later, nothing proved he was the Zodiac. The creepiest part, the Zodiac Killer officially disappeared in the 1970s. No confirmed murders, no more letters, nothing. But the case remains one of the most famous unsolved crimes in American history, because somewhere out there, a man once murdered people, mocked police, sent coded messages to newspapers, and then simply vanished. No arrest, no confession, no answers. And that's why even today, more than 50 years later, people still ask the same chilling question: who was the Zodiac Killer?